Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever felt like your worth is constantly being measured, perhaps by, what you do or how you look, maybe even the title attached to your name? Today we're taking a deep dive into, well, an extraordinary perspective on value. It's one that really challenges everything society tells us, and it reveals a surprising truth about how deeply you are loved and cherished.
Indeed. We're exploring what it truly means to be valued, not just by our human standards, but from a really profound divine perspective. Our sources today, they draw from some powerful, deeply personal reflections and insights into what's often called the heart of God. Our mission really is to pull out those crucial nuggets that will help you understand your unique, irreplaceable worth. A value that doesn't change with your circumstances or, how well you're performing.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's start with a profound example of love's nature. Imagine facing one of your deepest fears, maybe something like severe claustrophobia, for someone else. Our source shares this really personal story about enduring a grueling 12-hour flight, squeezed uncomfortably into a middle seat just so their child could sleep soundly, comfortably. And they talk openly about this lifelong struggle with anxiety, always needing an aisle seat, for that quick escape route feeling. Yet for their child, they just willingly embrace that intense discomfort for hours.
hmm And what's fascinating here is how this act, this willing discomfort, this sacrifice, is presented as an analogy for God's heart or the Father's heart. It really highlights a love that isn't calculated. It's not hesitant. It just flows from who he is. Our sources tell us that God's decision to send his son, it wasn't some long-pondered decision. No, it was preordained, existing from before time began. And this is crucial. Love, in this context, it's its own reason. You get me? It's not based on conditions or benefits. If conditions are attached, well, it's not really love, is it? It just becomes a transaction, a quid pro quo.
Like, I'll love you if.
Exactly. And this raises such an important question. If love has no other reason than itself, what does that mean for how God loves us? It means he cannot not love us. His love is just fundamental to who he is.
Wow. That's a powerful distinction because, let's be honest, our human experience often tells us the exact opposite, doesn't it? So if God's love is truly this unconditional, how does that truth collide with the way, our world constantly evaluates us? We live in a society that just judges us on visible markers. Think about it. We tend to favor people who are competent, witty, wealthy, talented, conventionally attractive. It creates this immense pressure, right? We're always trying to measure up.
Absolutely. And consider the anecdote our source gives about college students, those from maybe lesser-known schools. They might sort of strategically omit their university when introducing themselves, while those from prestigious ones, like Harvard, they'll find a way to subtly weave it into conversation.
Oh, yeah. Definitely seen that happen.
Right. Why? Because they know it immediately changes how people perceive them, how they treat them. And our source recounts their own experience, too, with a young man seeking advice. Initially, they admit they were kind of annoyed by his tardiness and his casual attire on a Sunday. He shows up in a baseball cap, tracksuit, even wearing one slipper.
Oh, wow.
But their perception completely flipped, just completely shifted when they learned he was an Air Force fighter pilot. It perfectly illustrates how easily we all, myself included, how easily we judge based on outward appearance and, perceived status.
That's a huge source of stress, that inevitable question, what do you do? We tie our entire identity to our job or our achievements. And sadly, this worldly value system, it can even creep into places like the church. You mentioned that. Our source details a church where famous or wealthy individuals were singled out for special recognition, introduced by their achievements and influence, rather than just their simple identity as a child of God. And the author of our source, they challenged this directly from the pulpit. Said something like, I am Brother Kim Sun-yu who loves God, and I think this introduction is enough in church. Emphasize that the church, as all places, should embody God's kingdom values, not worldly ones. Asking if people checked bank accounts or wallets at the door.
Strong words.
Yeah. Declaring, God is not desperate for a few talented or wealthy people. And this sermon pretty powerfully led to the author leaving that church shortly after. Though he says he still has a good relationship with the pastor, who apparently understood why such a strong message was needed.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, how did God originally value us? Before any of these worldly systems even existed, the very first book of the Bible, Genesis, tells us, chapter 1, verse 31. When God created humans, he looked at them and saw that it was very good. Now, our sources clarify that very good in God's language isn't just okay. It's not pretty good. It implies this overwhelming profound goodness, something far beyond our human comprehension. The author uses the example of Joseph in the Bible, who is described as merely handsome. We might picture someone, moderately attractive. But the author emphasizes, no, Joseph was so breathtakingly beautiful that Potiphar's wife, a woman who'd seen countless men, became instantly infatuated when he just tidied himself up a bit. So the Bible's understated language means God's very good for humanity. It was truly exceptional, incredibly beautiful, perfect in his eyes.
And what stands out about this original design, for me anyway, is that Adam and Eve did nothing to earn this very good status.
Right.
They weren't created as useful workers or helpers. In fact, our sources kind of humorously point out they were created after everything else was finished. Imagine if humans were made first. They'd just be floating around, getting in the way while God's trying to create the sun or the moon.
Yeah, good point.
The main role was just to exist, to marvel, to enjoy, and to praise God. Can you imagine seeing the pristine beauty of creation for the very first time? The vastness of the ocean, the intricate details of a flower, the sheer grandeur of the universe, and just being filled with wonder and awe. Our source describes how Adam and Eve simply ate, drank, touched, smelled, listened, just amazed by it all. That pure, unadulterated joy in simply being was enough for God. He delighted in their very existence, didn't ask for anything more.
Which then raises that crucial question. If our original value was just in our joyful existence, what happened when sin entered the world? Our sources define sin not just as, a bad action, but as a problem of existence. It corrupted our very being. It severed that perfect connection with God, made it impossible to bring joy to him in the same pure way. It's like a deep fundamental flaw in our operating system, sort of.
Ugly.
However, and this is key, despite this brokenness, this fundamental shift in our objective state, God's love for us remained unchanged. Think of it like an antique coin.
Okay.
Objectively, a 10-won coin might only be worth, 10 won, its face value. But to a passionate collector, its subjective value could be hundreds of thousands. Truly priceless, maybe because of its rarity or history.
Okay, I get that.
Similarly, while our objective value might have been corrupted by sin, God's subjective value for us is immeasurable. This is powerfully echoed in Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 5, verse 8. It says, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Just think about that for a second. God didn't wait for us to clean ourselves up, to earn his favor back. This means that even in our brokenness, even at our absolute worst, God deemed us worth the ultimate price, the life of his only son. We are, in his eyes, Jesus worth. That's a phrase our source uses. It means our value is so immense, so non-negotiable, that God considered us worth the ultimate sacrifice.
That's a truly transformative idea, especially when we constantly feel that pressure to prove our worth. And our sources share some really poignant personal stories that bring this truth home. The author recalls his own son's drawing. It was of 3 potatoes with chopsticks stuck in them. One was labeled Dad.
Potatoes, okay.
Yeah. Objectively, not exactly a masterpiece, right?
Yeah.
The author even jokingly asked if his son drew it with his foot. But its profound value came from the child's heart, from the love and the thought behind it. It's just like that biblical story of the widow's 2 mites. Remember that?
Tiny copper coins.
Exactly. Basically nothing by human standards. But Jesus said it was the greatest offering because it came from a place of deep devotion, not abundance.
Yeah.
God doesn't need our stuff or our perfect performance. He delights in our loving heart simply because of who we are to him. So what does this all mean for us? Practically speaking, it means our worth isn't, and never was, tied to our resume. Our sources describe the author's personal journey of feeling utterly useless in ministry, just completely worthless. He recants years of doing manual labor, mowing lawns, cleaning, cooking for thousands, always hoping for a more, impressive role. He'd teach himself guitar or how to fix computers, hoping that would be his thing, only to be replaced by professionals as soon as he got reasonably good at it. He felt inherently worthless. Convinced himself only talentless people do this kind of work, and even that, his personality must be bad.
Wow. And this feeling, it just built up, didn't it, to a moment of really profound despair while he was cleaning a warehouse. He felt, what I'm doing has no meaning, just pointless. So he sought refuge in a prayer room, and as he was reading a hymn, though the fig tree does not blossom, something just clicked, or, shifted. As he read the words about everything being nothing, no talent, no money, no good personality, no fruit on the fig tree, no grapes on the vine, no cattle in the stall, he actually got angry.
Angry.
Yeah, angry at God, questioning why God would even call him if he had nothing to offer. But then the final verse, I will rejoice in the Lord. It hit him like an aha moment. He realized God's true desire wasn't for his special deeds or his impressive talents. It was for his joy in God, joy in what God had already given him. And in that revelation, he just started weeping. And alone in the room, he began to dance. Just a simple, unadulterated act of joy. He finally understood his worth wasn't tied to his performance, but to his being, his connection with God.
And this path, this understanding, it leads to an incredibly vivid and frankly unforgettable story, one that perfectly illustrates this divine value. The author recounts cleaning toilets at a large event. I mean, a truly disgusting, manual, thankless task.
Oh, boy.
He describes the sheer horror of these clogged toilets, forcing him to literally use his hands because there were no proper tools available. He talks about it being a monumental, shocking mess, one he couldn't even properly clean. He even mentions using chopsticks to try and break up the waste just to get it to flush away. It sounds absolutely awful.
Yeah, that's intense. But the turning point came when his father walked by. His strict, authoritative father, a highly respected figure who apparently rarely showed overt praise.
Right.
And the author was there, covered in grime, doing this incredibly undignified labor. His father, who rarely even looked at him with praise, saw his son doing this humble service, and a look of profound pride and fondness crossed his face.
Pride for that.
Exactly. The author was completely bewildered. Like, why this? Why was he proud of this moment and not when I preached a great sermon or did something else impressive? He realized he couldn't boast about this achievement to anyone. Who would he tell? It was in that moment of raw, humble service that the true value of his being was affirmed. Beyond any worldly accomplishment or display of talent, it was just his son doing what needed to be done, with presumably a good heart about it eventually.
Wow. That experience, that powerful moment, brought the author to a crucial realization about God's heart. He prayed, and the message he received was life-changing, something you can truly put your own name into. God basically said, if I needed someone good at working, I could find them. If I needed a good singer, I could find them. If I needed someone with money, I could find them.
Yeah.
But you, insert your name here, my child, there is no alternative. I need you.
Yeah.
Not what you do for me, but you. He was apparently just shocked. Why would God, who has everything, need him?
And that insight is perfectly echoed in the biblical parable of the 100 sheep. You know the one. A shepherd has 100 sheep. One gets lost. He leaves the 99 not because they're unimportant, but to find that one lost sheep, because that one is irreplaceable. It's not just a sheep. It's that specific sheep. The joy isn't just in recovering a unit like balancing the books. It's in restoring the irreplaceable one. Our source emphasizes this. Even a healthier sheep won't do. Even more sheep won't do. It has to be that sheep.
Yeah.
You are not just one in a billion. You are the one to him. The source stresses, even if you were the only one who needed salvation, God would have sent Jesus just for you. This immeasurable value, this unchanging individual love, that's the very foundation of the gospel message.
And that unwavering, irreplaceable love, that's your greatest hope. It really is. The author shares this heartbreaking story about a young man who died by suicide directly outside his church.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. He saw the security footage later, witnessed the young man's distress, pacing back and forth, walking right past the church staff who were leaving Friday night services, unnoticed. Just the crushing realization that if only someone, anyone had spoken to him, offered just a word of connection, maybe things would have been different. And God's message to the author then was simple. Keep doing what you're doing. Go tell them my heart. This truth, this value, it provides hope when everything else seems lost. It's a powerful reminder that every single person holds this immeasurable worth. So this deep dive today has brought us to a pretty profound truth, I think. You are not valued by your achievements, your wealth, your looks, or your talent. You are valued for your very existence, deeply and unconditionally. By God, you are Jesus' worth, and to God, you are utterly irreplaceable.
And, many people find this really hard to believe, maybe because they've never experienced that kind of unconditional life from other people. People have let them down, disappointed them, left them, or maybe only valued them for what they could offer, right?
Yeah, that happens a lot.
But God, through countless examples, just keeps reiterating, I cannot give you up. That's just my nature. So when you find yourself in the deepest despair, when all seems lost, remember that this unwavering, almost illogical love is your last, most certain hope. You don't need perfect prayers. You don't need the right words. You just need to call out to the Father who sees you, who cherishes you. Even if you don't know what to pray, the source suggests just falling down, letting him have mercy on you, maybe just calling out Jesus or Father.
Yeah.
He longs to meet you right there in your rawest, most vulnerable state.
So the next time you find yourself maybe measuring your worth by the world's scales, remember the story of the toilet cleaning. Remember the shepherds leaving the 99 for the one. Remember Romans 5:8. What would it truly look like to live as someone utterly priceless in God's eyes, regardless of what the world says? How would that unshakable identity change your approach to challenges, to relationships, even to those quiet moments when you're just, well, being?